John Yates Beall was born to a very prominent and prosperous family in Jefferson County, whose life centered around their main home, Walnut Grove, which had once been located off Country Club Road. His childhood best friends were Daniel Bettinger Lucas and Edwin Gray Lee. When the Civil War broke out, all three were challenged to take brave positions. Daniel Bettinger Lucas, a hunchback, found desk work. Edwin Gray Lee and John Yates Beall sought to become privateers. Very quickly, John Yates Beall discovered a lack of skill in this. Being a privateer in the Chesapeake Bay, he captured vessels but accidentally burned the home of a civilian family in Maryland and was captured. His family influence got his freedom, and he resumed efforts at being a partisan. At one point, he led an expedition of about 8 men into Lake Erie with the purpose of capturing Johnson Island and freeing the Confederate officers who were imprisoned there. En route, he ordered his men to also commandeer and strap another vessel alongside theirs. This example of poor judgment prompted his men to call for a meeting, and they submitted a letter asking Beall to permit them to leave. Beall again attempted a partisan act and was arrested at Niagara Falls at a train station. This time, there wasn't leniency. President Lincoln was facing the fact that Colonel John Singleton Mosby was successfully working behind the lines. He could not take a soft stand on partisan activity. John Yates Beall was sentenced to hang.
Perhaps family money helped, or Lee's gold helped, but President Abraham Lincoln was deluged with letters pleading mercy for John Yates Beall. 91 congressmen and a handful of senators, in fact, who all, unfortunately, were the same Democrats who opposed President Lincoln's re-election. But the pleas kept pouring in. Then there was the visit to Lincoln by Beall's desperate mother and sister. Said Lincoln, "I've had more questions of life and death to settle in 4 years than all the other men who ever sat in this chair put together. No man knows the distress of my mind. The case of Beall on the Lakes had to be an example." John Beall wrote by a small lamp in his gloomy cell, "I care nothing for the judgment of mankind and nothing for their punishment I have to suffer, because I know my mother thinks her son is right, and my sister will honor my memory." He wrote a pointed request to Daniel to write about him and to preserve his family name. Beall also wrote in his diary, "On making a retrospect of my life, how much there is in it to deplore, how little to dwell on with pleasure, why candor compels me to confess that I am a failure, how many unknown secret and unsuspected sins were committed by me. My present life is a cheat and a deceit, a miserable, cowardly, contemptible sham. This is my deliberate opinion and judgment." On the day of his hanging, Beall received his executioners into his narrow cell. His mother, Janet, was gone, and they had said their goodbyes. He was silent and composed but for a moment, when his arms were bound behind his back, and all personal freedom was taken from him. He sobbed, and then the hood was dropped over his head, and the long walk to the outside scaffold on Governor's Island began. It overlooked the city and the inlet. Wrote one observer, the gallows were situated on a green knoll commanding a lookout over the bay, and was surrounded by a select throng of guests of perhaps 150. Beall marched over the green hillocks, very pale, but perfectly self-possessed. The ominous black cap was on his head, and its long tassels swayed in the fresh morning breeze that breathed gently from the sea. His step was firm and steady, and upon arriving at the edge of the scaffold, he gazed at the dread instrument of death without the least exhibition of emotion. It was a beautiful day, fresh with the first kiss of early spring. Manhattan Island, with its steeples and towers, gleamed in the distance. Just before the black cap was drawn over his face, heaven, what an infinitude of love and beauty shuts out at such an hour. A man, standing almost as close as the hangman, listened as Beall spoke to the group. He said, as some author has said, we may be as near to God on the scaffold as elsewhere. I protest against the execution of this sentence. It is a murder. I die in the service and defense of my country. I have nothing more to say. Then there followed a long 6-minute wait. Forever, it seemed, identical to the wait that John Brown was forced to undergo on the gallows in Charlestown 6 long years before. Then the close-by reporter wrote, I alone heard him utter the words, I am coming to you quickly, Alice. Do not think I am afraid. The tone of his voice was low and steady, and the next instant he was launched into eternity. But there was something brave and simple in these last words, the memory of which has never ceased to haunt me. Woe, woe is us, the startled mothers cried. While we have slept, our noble sons have died. Woe, woe is us, how strange and sad, that all our glorious visions fled, have left us nothing real but dread, in the land where we were dreaming.